Elias Carter had never thought he would stand before an alien queen. Even in his wildest dreams as a ship engineer, he had imagined being celebrated for designing faster engines or repairing complex systems, but never for being called something impossible, something personal, in the court of the most powerful alien empire in the galaxy. The chamber stretched wider than any human city Elias had ever seen. Towering walls glimmered with a strange light, reflecting in patterns that made his head spin. Hundreds of alien nobles and soldiers lined the sides of the hall. Their eyes, bright and varied, seemed to pierce him from every angle. At the far end, seated on a platform taller than a building, was the alien queen. Her presence filled the room. She was massive, regal, and terrifying all at once. Every movement she made seemed to carry the weight of countless generations. Elias' heart pounded. He had been brought here under guard, not as a guest, but as someone the court needed to judge, or perhaps punish. He had no idea why. All he knew was that he had rescued a young alien child months ago during a pirate attack on a distant trade station. That child, small, frightened, and alone, had clung to him as he helped her survive. He had carried her through collapsing corridors, patched her wounds with whatever supplies he had, and stayed awake for nights when she had nightmares. He had thought that was the end of it, that after returning her safely, their paths would part. He did not know that the child, Princess Lyrian, would remember him, not just remember, but trust him completely. The hall fell silent as the queen's voice echoed. It was a roar that vibrated through the floor and made Elias' knees weak. "Why is my daughter calling you father, human?" she demanded, her words sharp as laser beams. Every noble in the chamber gasped. Guards tightened their grips on their weapons. Elias froze. I don't understand, Your Majesty," he said, his voice shaking. "She calls you father," the queen repeated, rising slightly. Her presence seemed to darken the room. "Do you claim this? Speak." Elias shook his head quickly. "No, I never." Before he could finish, a small voice interrupted from behind him. "Father!" Elias turned to see Princess Lyrian standing just outside the human guard's circle. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear and determination. She ran toward him, holding out her tiny hands. "Father!" "Don't let them hurt me," the court erupted in confusion. Gasps and shouts filled the hall. Aliens whispered urgently to each other. Some began stepping forward, but the queen's hand shot out. "Do not touch her," she thundered. "Step back, all of you." Elias looked at the child, his mind racing. He had not expected this. How could she call him father? He had never claimed to be anything but a rescuer. And yet, when he saw her eyes, he understood. She had remembered everything. The nights he stayed awake to comfort her, the stories he told her in a voice she could understand, the courage he had shown when the pirates attacked. To her, he was more than a stranger. He was someone who had protected her when no one else could. "Your Majesty," Elias began carefully, bowing slightly, "I only helped your daughter. I never claimed to be her father. I was only there to protect her when she had no one else." The queen's eyes narrowed. Her voice dropped to a low, dangerous growl. "Explain yourself." "I want truth, human. Do you expect my child to lie to me?" "I don't know what she thinks," Elias admitted. "But I promise you I never asked her to call me that. I never told her I was her father. I only—" "She calls you father because you are," the princess interrupted, her small voice strong in the vast chamber. "You stayed with me, you told me stories, you kept me safe when everyone else ran. You are my father." The queen's roar shook the hall again. "Silence," she bellowed. Even the walls seemed to tremble. "This is impossible. Humans do not raise our children. Humans do not bond in this way. You lie or the child lies." "No, Your Majesty," Elias said quietly, though his hands were trembling. "She remembers. I only helped her because she needed someone. I never expected this." The queen studied him carefully. Her gaze was like fire, burning into him, searching for lies. Elias could feel his body tense. His mind raced for any explanation that could satisfy her, but there was none. Nothing he could say would erase what the princess believed, and deep down, Elias realized it was not wrong. To the child, he had been there when no one else was. He had been a father in her eyes, even if not by blood. Guards stepped forward to take him away. Elias allowed himself to be led forward, his hands bound by energy restraints. The princess ran alongside him, clutching at his arm. "Please, don't leave me." "Stand back," the queen ordered, her voice sharp. She looked at her daughter. "You will not call him that again." The princess shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I won't, I can't. He is my father." The queen's fury rose, her massive hands clenched into fists. "You dare defy me, child." I am not defying you," Lyrian said softly, her voice trembling. "I am only telling the truth." Elias felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to explain more to make the queen understand. But there was no time. The court would not listen. The queen's anger could not be reasoned with. As Elias was led to a holding area beneath the palace, he caught a glimpse of the vast city outside the chamber. Towers stretched toward the sky, and ships glimmered as they moved through the air. Despite its beauty, it felt cold and unwelcoming. And yet he knew he could not abandon the princess. She trusted him completely, and he would not let her down. The chamber doors closed behind him. The echoes of the queen's roar still lingered in his mind. He was a human, alone in an alien world, facing an empire that had never seen his kind as anything more than curiosities or threats. And yet somehow, a small child's trust had changed everything. Inside the holding area, Elias met other prisoners. Most were merchants or smugglers, accused of minor crimes, trembling under the weight of the empire's power. He introduced himself cautiously, careful not to attract more attention. But even here, he could not stop thinking about the princess. He remembered her small hands gripping his, the way she had leaned against him for comfort, the questions she asked about the stars and the universe. She had been curious, fearless, and smart beyond her years, and she had called him father. Not because he demanded it, but because he had earned her trust. Days passed. The queen's anger did not diminish. Guards watched Elias constantly, but he continued to help others quietly. He repaired broken energy cells, helped with medical devices, and even fixed minor communication problems for the palace staff. Though they were aliens, they began to notice his skills and his courage. Word of his actions slowly reached the princess. She would sneak small messages to him, written on scraps of paper or whispered through the palace corridors. "Thank you, father," one message read. "I know you will not abandon me. I will wait for you." Elias held each note close, feeling a mixture of pride and fear. Every action he took in this alien world could be misunderstood. Every word could provoke the queen further. But he could not ignore the child who trusted him. He could not abandon her now. Finally, the queen summoned him again. This time, her fury was matched with curiosity. She wanted to understand why a human, her child's rescuer, could inspire such devotion in an alien child. She demanded he explain everything about his life, his intentions, and why her daughter believed him to be a father. Elias spoke honestly, telling of the pirate attack, the nights he stayed awake, the stories he had told. He admitted he had never expected the princess to remember so vividly. He had done what any person would do to protect a child in danger. The queen listened silently. Her eyes, once blazing with fury, softened slightly. She could see the truth in Elias' eyes. He spoke from the heart, and despite her anger, she could sense the bond that had formed between human and child. But even as she considered this, she could not fully accept it. "A human is not family," she said finally, her voice quieter but still strong. "And yet my daughter will not lie. She calls you father. You saved her life. This is strange and dangerous." Elias nodded. "I did what I had to do. I never asked to be called father. I only wanted her safe." The queen stared at him, weighing her next move. She could exile him, imprison him indefinitely, or perhaps, if she chose carefully, use this human's unique nature to her empire's advantage. For now, she said nothing. She simply dismissed him back to the holding area. As Elias walked away, the princess waved at him from the gallery above, her small hand raised in silent defiance. "Father," she whispered. Elias smiled, his heart heavy but determined. He would not abandon her. He would find a way to earn her trust and perhaps, in time, even the queen's respect. The galaxy outside the palace was vast and full of dangers, but Elias Carter understood something crucial. Humans may not be the strongest, the largest, or the most powerful. But when they choose to protect, to care, and to stand for others, they become something more than expected. And sometimes, that was enough to shake an empire. And so, the human who was not supposed to matter waited, biding his time. For somewhere in the darkness of this alien world, his destiny, and the destiny of a child who called him father, was only beginning. The palace was quieter now, but not peaceful. The queen sat in her private chamber, the weight of the empire pressing heavily on her shoulders. Her mind could not rest. How could a human, an outsider, weak and fragile compared to her kind, be so important to her daughter? She paced the marble floors, her long tail brushing against the walls. "Is this possible?" she muttered to herself. Her advisors stood silently behind her, uneasy. None dared speak unless spoken to. A human, forming a bond that defies nature, and my daughter obeys him willingly. "Tell me it is a trick." "It is not a trick, Your Majesty," one cautious advisor replied. "We have records." The human did indeed rescue the princess. He stayed with her. The child's memory confirms it. He showed bravery beyond his species. The queen's eyes narrowed. Bravery alone does not make one a parent." "No, Your Majesty," another advisor said. "But actions like his, they create trust, trust that cannot be bought or commanded. The child feels it. The human earned it." The queen's claws dug into the edge of her table. "I will not let this stand. He is a human. He does not belong here. He could poison her mind." The advisors remained silent. None could argue further. They knew better than to challenge a mother in this empire. But even they felt the strange weight of truth in the human's actions. Meanwhile, in the holding area below the palace, Elias worked quietly. Guards had begun to leave him alone for longer stretches. His repairs to the palace's energy systems had proven useful. He had fixed damaged communication arrays, redirected power to failing life support systems, and even helped medics with tools they didn't fully understand. Yet despite these small victories, Elias' mind was never far from the princess. Each day, she sent him tiny messages, hidden in food trays or whispered by servants sympathetic to her plight. "Father, I trust you. Please don't leave me." Elias held each note close. They were more than words. They were a promise, a connection that defied the walls, guards, and the queen's anger. He had learned a simple truth: humans cared differently. Humans did not always have power, but they had something even more unpredictable: courage born from compassion. Days passed, and the Empire faced growing danger. Sensors had detected a rival fleet approaching from the outer system. They were fast, organized, and heavily armed. Military commanders argued fiercely over defense strategies. "Deploy the warships immediately," one officer barked. "We cannot risk a single human's advice." "Human," another officer sneered. "He is an engineer, nothing more. His species is weak." "Why involve him in anything critical?" Word of this reached the queen. She frowned. For the first time, she considered what the human's presence might mean, not just for the princess, but for the empire itself. Perhaps the human's courage, his ability to protect even the helpless, could be useful. But to trust him, that was unthinkable. And yet, the princess refused to leave him behind. When guards moved to isolate her during a war briefing, she had thrown herself into their arms, screaming for him. "I will not move without him. He is my father." The queen, watching from above, felt a strange tug in her chest. She had never doubted her daughter's intelligence, yet she had never seen such unwavering loyalty in someone so small. Perhaps The human had done something remarkable, something beyond fear or skill, something that made her daughter feel safe, no matter the danger. The first real test came sooner than expected. The rival fleet appeared at the edge of the system. Alien sensors blared warnings as warships scrambled into formation. Panic swept through the command center. Systems failed. Power relays overloaded. Communications jammed. The alien empire, confident in its rigid protocols, was unprepared for the sudden chaos. Elias, watching through the holding area's access panel, realized what was happening. The rival fleet did not expect human improvisation, but humans were born to adapt. He spoke to a nearby guard, pointing at damaged control panels. "If you reroute power through these nodes, you can stabilize the shields. I can guide you." The guard hesitated. "But you are human. This is a military matter." "I am still alive," Elias replied calmly. "And I know how to fix this, trust me." After tense moments, the guards relented. Following his instructions, they rerouted power and repaired broken conduits. Slowly, the shields flickered back to life. It was far from perfect, but it was enough to protect the city long enough for the fleet to rethink its attack. Word of his action spread quickly. Soldiers whispered among themselves, shocked that a human, so small, so fragile, could command such respect and save so many lives. And the princess, watching from a safe gallery, cheered silently for him. Later, when the queen confronted Elias again, it was not in anger this time, but curiosity and caution. She studied him from above, her massive eyes scanning every inch of his form. "You saved lives today," she said quietly. "A human doing what even trained soldiers could not." "Why?" Elias looked up at her calmly. "Because they needed someone," he said simply. "Because no one else was ready and I could help, that's all. I did what anyone should do." The queen's lips tightened. "Your kind does not understand loyalty, not like we do. Yet you inspire it. You have made my daughter love you, trust you, follow you. Tell me, why should I not see you as a threat?" Elias met her gaze. "Because I never wanted power. I never wanted control. I only protect. That is all humans do. They care, even when it is dangerous, even when they gain nothing. Sometimes that is enough to change everything." For a long moment the queen said nothing. Her mind wrestled with a truth that unsettled her deeply. This human, so small and fragile, had done more than anyone expected. He had proven courage in action. He had earned trust not through rank, nor by weapons, but through care and compassion. The next day the rival fleet returned, more cautious but still threatening. The Empire's War Council panicked again. Ships were out of position. Systems continued to fail under pressure. Elias, refusing to remain idle, escaped the holding area with the help of sympathetic guards. He did not flee. Instead, he ran toward the civilians trapped in lower levels of the palace. Broken elevators, collapsed corridors, and scattered power nodes blocked the way. But Elias did not stop. He guided people through the chaos, carrying the smallest children, calming the injured, and improvising solutions where none seemed possible. The princess ran alongside him as much as she could, shouting encouragement. "Father, this way. There's a safe path." Guards watched in awe. Soldiers began following his lead, coordinating in ways they never imagined. Elias' human logic, his quick thinking, and his willingness to risk himself inspired everyone around him. Slowly, order began to emerge from chaos. When the battle ended, the rival fleet retreated. They could not understand how a human, supposedly weak, had turned the Empire's disarray into organized defense. Word of this act spread faster than the fleet itself. Across the galaxy, stories began circulating about the human who saved an alien empire without a weapon in his hands. Back in the palace, the queen observed her daughter hugging Elias tightly. "I am proud of you," she whispered. "But do not forget, he is a human." "You must be cautious." The princess shook her head. "I do not care if he is human, he is my father. He saved my life and the lives of thousands. I trust him completely." The queen's tail lashed. She wanted to scold her daughter to force her to obey, but even she could not deny the truth. Humans were different, unpredictable, and terrifying in ways she had never considered. They were fragile, yes, but they had hearts that would move mountains and minds that could adapt to anything. Elias, standing before the queen for the first time without restraints, bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "I do not seek power. I only wish to protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is all I ask." The queen regarded him carefully, her eyes scanning the human's face for any hint of deception. There was none. She realized something extraordinary. Humans, though weak in form, were strong in ways she could not fully understand. They could inspire loyalty, act with courage without reward, and protect others even at great risk. Perhaps, she thought slowly, they could be allies after all. That night, as the palace settled into uneasy calm, the princess left a small note for Elias. "Father, I know the galaxy is dangerous, but I also know you will always protect me. Thank you for being my father in every way that matters." Elias read it and smiled. For the first time in weeks, he felt hope. He was alone in a foreign world, facing an empire that did not trust his kind. Yet a child's trust and the quiet acknowledgement of an alien queen gave him strength. Humans, he realized, had always survived by caring for each other, by standing together when others faltered, by refusing to leave those in need. And sometimes that simple truth was enough to change an empire. Ending Hook. As Elias prepared for the next challenge, alarms blared across the palace. The rival fleet was regrouping. Reports suggested they were planning a larger strike, one that could reach the heart of the empire itself. The queen looked down at the human standing calmly in her court, her daughter clinging to him. Her voice was quieter now, almost reluctant. "Perhaps I underestimated humans." Elias nodded. He did not need to respond. Actions, not words, would determine what came next. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, the human who had once been nothing more than a rescuer prepared to teach an empire the true meaning of courage. The morning sun cast its glow over the alien palace, reflecting off towers taller than any human city. The empire seemed calm from above, but beneath the surface, tension simmered. The rival fleet had returned, larger and more organized than before. Scouts reported hundreds of fast warships converging on the capital system. Panic rippled through the palace corridors as generals and commanders argued over strategy. The queen stood on her balcony, staring at the stars. Her massive tail twitched, betraying her agitation. She thought of her daughter, Princess Lyrian, who clung stubbornly to the idea that a human, Elias Carter, was not only trustworthy but worthy of the title father. She could not understand why her child felt this way, and yet she had begun to see it herself. Humans were strange. Small, fragile, yet they acted with courage that defied reason. They inspired loyalty in ways that no weapon could. Elias was in the command center, standing among alien officers and soldiers who were wary but curious. He had not sought this position. He had never wanted power. But the situation demanded action, and humans, he had learned, acted when others froze. "Shields are failing on the northern perimeter," he said, pointing to a holographic display of the fleet. "We need to reroute energy through the secondary conduits. It will hold for a while, but we must act fast or the fleet will breach the city." One of the officers, a tall alien with blue-scaled skin, frowned. "You, a human, are telling us how to defend the capital." Elias met his gaze. "I'm not telling you to obey me. I'm showing what works. You can argue later if the city still exists." The officer hesitated. For the first time he saw not arrogance but clarity. Elias was not seeking glory. He was focused on protecting lives. Slowly, he nodded and followed the instructions. The palace shook as the first wave of enemy ships fired upon the outer defenses. Explosions erupted, sending shockwaves through the command center. Alarms blared. Lights flickered. Many soldiers froze, unsure of what to do. Elias did not hesitate. He moved among the panels, rerouting energy, repairing shields, and guiding soldiers through damaged systems. He spoke calmly, giving orders that made sense, explaining why certain actions were critical. "Move the drones to the eastern flank," he instructed. "They are faster and can intercept the incoming missiles. Use the gravity fields to slow the larger ships. It will give us time." The alien officers murmured, unsure at first, then began acting. Slowly, chaos turned into organized defense. The shields held longer than expected. The fleet's first strike was blunted. Civilians remained safe, guided by the princess and the human who had earned her trust. The queen watched from above, her massive eyes widening. She had expected humans to panic, to fail, to weaken morale. Instead, Elias had changed the tide of battle simply by acting with courage and intelligence. Her daughter, perched nearby, cheered quietly. "Father, you can do it. Keep going." Lyrian's faith in him was unwavering. Her words were small, but they carried power. Even the queen felt their weight. The human's actions inspired others. Alien soldiers who had doubted him now followed his instructions without question. Engineers repaired systems that seemed beyond hope. Civilians were evacuated efficiently. And all the while, Elias moved calmly, never boasting, never faltering, only working to protect. Hours passed. The enemy fleet, confused by the sudden efficiency and unexpected tactics, struggled to maintain formation. Their ships began retreating as minor errors cascaded into larger failures. Alien commanders whispered in disbelief. The human had done what their most experienced generals could not. Elias, exhausted but focused, coordinated the final defensive measures. Using an improvised network of energy relays, gravity fields, and drones, he created a barrier strong enough to force the enemy fleet to withdraw. The alien city was safe, for now. After the battle, the palace was quiet except for the sounds of repair and recovery. The queen summoned Elias to the central chamber. Her massive form towered over him, but this time her eyes were not filled with anger. They were curious, cautious, and something new: respect. "You survived," she said slowly. "And yet you are not a warrior. You wield no weapons. You command nothing by title, and still you changed the course of this battle. Why?" Elias bowed slightly. "I acted because it needed to be done. I protected those who could not protect themselves. That is all humans do. They stand when others fall, even if it is dangerous, even if they gain nothing." The queen studied him, her gaze softened further. "You are different. Your kind, I underestimated you. Perhaps humans are more than we imagined." The princess, standing nearby, reached out and held Elias' hand. "See, mother, he is my father. He saved so many lives today. He is brave, he is wise, and he cares." The queen's tail lashed slightly. She wanted to deny it, to assert control, but even she could not ignore the truth. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were also capable of courage, loyalty, and compassion in ways she had never seen. The queen then addressed the empire. The court gathered, waiting for her judgment. For the first time, she spoke not as a ruler seeking control, but as a mother recognizing truth. "This human," she began, her voice calm but powerful, "is not of our species. He is fragile, small, and different. Yet he has shown courage, wisdom, and loyalty beyond measure. He has saved lives, protected my daughter, and inspired many. He is remarkable." Gasps filled the room. The nobles had not expected such words. They whispered urgently among themselves. Some resisted, refusing to accept the idea that a human, an outsider, could hold such honor, but others nodded, acknowledging what they had witnessed. The queen continued, her gaze falling on Elias. "He asked nothing from us. He sought only to protect those in need. And in doing so, he has earned a place of respect in our empire." The princess hugged Elias tightly. "Mother, he is my father, not by blood but by heart, and now you see why." The queen looked down at her daughter and then at Elias. Slowly, she knelt before the child. "If this is your choice, I accept it. The human shall be recognized, not as a servant, not as a subject, but as someone who has earned the trust of my family and my empire." With that declaration, the empire shifted. Humans were no longer seen as weak outsiders. Across the galaxy, news spread of the human who had saved an alien empire, not through weapons, not through fear, but through courage, intelligence, and compassion. Elias did not seek fame. He did not ask for titles. He only wanted the princess to be safe and for the empire to survive. And now, through simple acts of care and bravery, he had achieved more than anyone imagined possible. The queen turned to him. "You ask for nothing." "Nothing," Elias replied, shaking his head. "Except that the princess be allowed to choose her own path and that she be safe." The queen nodded. "Then it is done. You have changed not just her life but the course of our empire. You are our ally, and more importantly, you are family." In the days that followed, the palace rebuilt, systems repaired, and civilians returned to their routines. The princess stayed by Elia's side, learning from him, laughing with him, and sharing small adventures through the palace corridors. The queen watched, wary but understanding, as her daughter formed a bond that no one could sever. Elias, once an outsider, now walked freely through the halls. He was still human, small, fragile, and unlike anyone else in the empire, but he had become something far greater. He had earned respect, inspired loyalty, and changed hearts. Humans, he realized, were never meant to dominate through size or strength. They dominated through something more profound: the courage to stand for others, the willingness to act when it mattered, and the ability to form bonds that could not be broken. And so, the Empire learned a new lesson. Across distant stars and systems, stories spread. A human had arrived, unknown and underestimated. He had faced fear, danger, and a powerful empire's mistrust. Through courage, care, and intelligence, he saved thousands. And a small alien child, once alone, had called him father. The galaxy whispered of the human who was nothing by birth but everything by action. The queen looked at Elias one last time. "Perhaps we will not underestimate your kind again." Elias smiled. He did not boast, he did not seek glory. He only looked at the princess and said softly, "We will face the future together." And for the first time in history, the Empire understood that humans were not weak outsiders. They were unpredictable, unstoppable in their courage, and capable of forming bonds that changed worlds. The stars above glimmered. Somewhere out there, rival fleets reconsidered their next moves, unsure how a small species could protect not only itself, but an entire empire. Elias Carter, the human who had only wanted to protect, had shown the galaxy the true power of humanity.